Hey, everybody. So Cameron and I are here with, I'm going to say, if you're listening to us in our normal format, which is on your podcast player in audio, we're here in a little unique format today because we're on video. And so and you can always go to YouTube and find that. But we have with us today doctors Will Gulsby and Marcus Lashley. And I just don't know how it's possible at this point, but if any of you don't know who Will and Marcus are, Will is an associate professor of wildlife ecology and management in the College of Forestry, Wildlife, and Environment at the school with the little brother complex known as Auburn University. And Marcus is the associate professor of wildlife ecology and conservation at the University of Florida. And in case you guys, like I said, aren't familiar with these two names, they have probably Cameron's and my favorite podcast out there. And I'm putting that above the Turkey Hunter podcast. So that tells you, tells you where we rank.
I hate listening to the Turkey Hunter podcast.
I used to enjoy it before Cameron became my co-host, and now I just can't stand listening to it.
Right.
Well, I don't listen to Wild Turkey Science, so
yeah. Well, listen, we totally get it, but we listen to your podcast. We appreciate what you guys do on that, and I just noticed when I was on the interwebs doing a little digging on you guys and I didn't know this, so if you announced it on the show, I must have missed that show, but you guys were awarded the Conservation Communicator of the Year award by the Alabama Wildlife Federation Governor's Conservation Achievement Award. So congratulations on that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal.
That was quite an honor.
We really appreciate that.
Yeah. It's hard to believe it was Marcus, you're kind of cutting out.
Oh boy.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
I think we got you.
There you are. Maybe.
I mean, guys. Yeah.
Okay.
We were.
Marcus is live on location at the Pulp facility.
All right. Well, I don't know if Marcus is talking or not, to be honest, right now, but I was going to say it's hard to believe it's been January of 2023 when we had you guys on last.
Yeah.
And that was kind of announcing the start of y'all's podcast.
Yeah, that was right at the launch. Yep.
Yeah.
2.5 years now. That's awesome. Has it gone well?
We're starting to kind of figure some things out, I guess. But
can I give you 11 years worth of experience, a little advice?
Okay.
You won't figure it out. Just go.
I can just reduce that anxiety that, one day that's coming. But I think what Marcus was going to say, to fill in for him a little bit, we got 2 additional awards since then. One of them was from the National Association of, I'm going to get it wrong. It's a long acronym, but it's an extension award for extension efforts through universities. And we got I think they call it like the Gold Medal Award or something like that in the podcast and radio category for extension professionals nationally. And then there was another one more recently that I'm having trouble recollecting the name of. But yeah, we've been really honored to get those accolades. And I think especially with the extension stuff, it's because, there's a lot of extension folks that haven't adopted or adapted to, this new medium, although that's changing every day and we're starting to see more and more podcasts come out in the space. But we've really enjoyed it. And, what's most meaningful about it is, for example, yesterday I was doing a turkey field workshop for landowners, and Dr. Craig Harper and I were doing it here in Alabama. And the first group that we had was the biggest group. We had about 50 individuals in it, and Craig asked them to raise their hand if they'd listened to the Wild Turkey Science podcast, and about 2/3 of them raised their hands.
Wow.
And they were throwing around a lot of the terms that we use all
Nice.
the time on the podcast, particularly habitat management stuff. And I was just so proud, to know that we're effectively getting through to that many people to move the needle for turkeys.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
that's
just sent a text to Marcus to see if he wants me to call him instead of just trying to have him on video. So I'll wait on him to respond here. But yeah, Will, that's incredible. I'm excited for you guys. I mean, it must, I don't know what it's like. It must be really cool to win so many awards you can't even remember the names of them. So
Well, here's the other truth is at least 2 of those would have never happened if it weren't for the fact that our producer Charlotte took care of the application packet. So
There you go.
kudos to Charlotte is what we should be doing,
Yeah.
or what we should be saying, I guess.
yeah, there you go.
Next time we have you on, I want you to wear all the medals like Michael
Oh,
Phelps. Like,
that would be awesome.
I asked him for rings. I wanted like Super Bowl rings.
yeah, that'd be
Kind of like Nick Saban.
yeah, there you go.
But yeah, I think probably the reason we're winning some of those extension awards is because we're the dumbest professors on the block, so people actually understand us.
I wouldn't go that far.
We have you
Thank
back.
Oh man, we got video
Look,
this
got
time.
video.
Hey guys,
All
All right.
right.
All right.
sorry about that.
Awesome.
Good deal.
I'm not very good with technology.
Oh, you're
somehow.
good. We
I
were just talking about how great y'all are.
Well, I could hear you guys, and I was like, man, Will is really, taking up the slack over there, making us sound good.
Well, I didn't mean to. You know what? We should probably edit some of that out.
We don't
Keep
want
it.
to give the viewers or listeners the
Yeah.
wrong impression.
Yeah,
Even a blind hog finds an acorn now and then.
That's right.
yeah. I think Will did the right move there at the end. That we have a lot to attribute to Charlotte because she is the one that makes us sound listenable, and she is responsible for a large portion of the success, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
No
good.
doubt.
It's nice to have a Charlotte.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No doubt. So
I highly recommend Charlotte's
yeah.
from one podcaster to another.
All right. Excellent. we will definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to have you guys on today specifically. Y'all did a show 2 weeks ago. I think Andy and I both listened to it about hunter recruitment and there was other things, decoy usage and some findings with those items. And Marcus mentioned multiple times on it that, this is kind of a very divisive line of thinking. There's a lot of people that think turkey hunting numbers are at all-time highs, but then this data that y'all shared on the show kind of showed a different story. So we're going to kind of discuss that in depth. I'll go ahead and throw my hat in the ring as I'm one of those guys that Marcus described. But I'd like for y'all to for people who, maybe one of the 3 listeners to the show doesn't listen to the Turkey Science podcast. Could you kind of give me a brief synopsis of y'all's findings this was a study through your lab in Florida, Marcus?
Yeah, so I have a postdoctoral associate, Zach Steele, who specializes really in human dimensions type of work. And he's really interested in, trying to understand the hunting community and what drives hunters to be hunters and conservationists and those sorts of things. So when he joined my lab, he decided to see what was available in the turkey hunting realm for human dimensions, like how much have we published on it or studied it. And it really hasn't been that much, but he found a couple dozen studies, that have been over the last 30 or 40 years. And we were able to use some metrics that they were tracking in those studies across all these, so they're coming from different states. We had a few states that you have 3 or 4 data points from over time, but out of the 20 something, we may have 15 states represented or something like that. And some of the findings were not that surprising, like you mentioned the decoy use that has increased over time. That makes sense. Earlier studies, a lot of the states were probably considering legalizing it or looking at, the effects of legalizing it on behavior, things like that. So it's probably early on in those studies when decoys became usable. But, some of the other things that, admittedly, even to me, were pretty surprising. And I think the main metric that you were talking about, Cameron, that was really interesting is that the age of people responding to the surveys, which they're surveying turkey hunters, the age has been increasing fairly rapidly. So I think it was something like for every 3 years that passes, the average age of the hunting community ages about 1 year, which would kind of indicate that people are aging faster than we're recruiting. So the other thing that was really, I guess, a controversial part of that is the only data point we have is that national survey, which we didn't have anything to do with, but was from 2011 to 2016, and I think it showed that the number of turkey hunters that responded to that survey was estimated to have declined pretty substantially across the United States.
Marcus, I think that you were getting kind of garbled there, and I think you're making some really important points that we want to make sure. I don't want to take over y'all's show, but we want to make sure that everybody can hear clearly. So maybe while you're getting back in signal, I just want to interject something really briefly, is that when Zach was going through some of that human dimensions literature, it was kind of surprising, and Marcus, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but at the relative scarcity of human dimensions work that had been done on turkey hunting and turkey hunters. And I think that that's something really important, and a lot of states are starting to take notice of that and do more of that work. And the reason that I think it's important is because there are so many things that state agencies do that pertain to turkey hunting and that are very relevant to turkey hunters that fall between the gap, so to speak, of biology, right? So there's so many decisions that we make with regulations and policy and things like that that don't necessarily directly impact, population dynamics or something along those lines. So I think it's very important for, state wildlife agencies to understand, what hunter preferences are, what their attitudes and opinions are, so that on those issues where there's not a clear biological answer, that they can basically formulate regulations that are consistent with hunter desires when possible.
Yeah, thank you for that. Marcus, do you mind repeating the findings on that last part about the turkey hunters?
Yeah, so sorry guys about the service issue, but so I guess one of the major findings that we found surprising, and was from what Zach did, was the aging turkey hunter community. So that was concerning to us. And then he went and tried to find other survey work done. And I know this is one of the things that Cameron mentioned previously. There was a national survey that was from 2011 to 2016. And based on that survey, they estimated that the number of turkey hunters from 2011 to 2016 had declined quite a bit.
And that's administered by Fish and Wildlife Service, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we didn't have anything to do with that. We were just trying to find all the data we could find. And, that was another study that we were able to uncover that was specific about turkey hunters. And it was nationwide. It's not talking about any nuance that might occur between states or anything like that.
Yeah. So did you guys at any point when you were researching these surveys and studies, did you look at how the data was gathered and compiled? Because I'm going to go to this and look, you guys are both the researchers, numbers and stats better than I do. You know how to
Sure.
you know how to make a study be unbiased, and in that
Mhm.
same slate, in that same thought, you know that it's easy to make a survey or really any kind of statistics biased if you
Sure.
want to. And as much as it pains me to say that, because I'm a numbers guy, and the reason I'm a numbers guy is because numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
But
Right.
they can, if you're doing them the right way, they don't lie. They can be manipulated in order to lie. So I'm going to let you answer that question before I just keep rambling.
Well, I would say the short answer, Andy, is yes. We take great care in trying to make sure that we're looking into the rigor of studies and also looking at the way that it's being spun, like you're talking about. Like, you can cut data in different ways to try to make a point or strengthen a point or mislead on a point, unfortunately. So yes, we do that commonly, and Zach is one of the best, I would say, in this realm at doing that.
Cool.
So yes.
Is this
And
showing on y'all's screen? I was sharing the graphics that y'all used from Zach's study on the age deal. I was wondering if y'all could kind of walk us through it, because to make sure I understand it. Are each of the, like, so this right here, for instance, like 1980 something, there's 4 dots on the same year.
Yeah.
Are those 4 different states?
Yes.
Okay,
There
so
are four different studies.
each dot is like a. I know y'all had another one that showed which states it were. These states, I guess, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, Missouri, Ohio. So each of these dots is representative of one state's study or survey, I mean, that y'all went through. Okay. I was kind of curious about that. And basically, y'all just plotted all the dots, and we established this trend line there.
Yep.
Okay. Because it.
Yeah, and let me just say a couple of things about this. I think it's a good way to play off what you and Andy, your points that you were making. So, for example, in this study, when we're looking at a scatter plot that are representing a bunch of states and a bunch of different time periods, right?
Yeah.
So what's going on in Alabama and Ohio in a given year might not be comparable. So, that's one issue immediately here. And like, you can see an outlier kind of on the right side. I think we talked about it a good bit, because that's Mississippi.
That one?
I think it's one of those over there. We noted, man, that really sticks out.
Yeah.
So we went back and looked at the data point to see, and one thing that Zach noted when he went back and looked at the study is the way the question was framed was a little bit different. So, there are lots of things like that we're trying to take into account. And you also remember we had a couple of other figures, because we were trying to do the what you're talking about and vet things and say, okay, well, is this actually realistic? Are we actually seeing an increase in age or an increase in decoy use, or whatever? And then we would plot, okay, what about, let's look within a state. Do we have multiple data points in that state, and do we see the same trend when we look at that subset? So we were doing a variety of methods to try to make sure that patterns that we were seeing are real and not spurious or related to some other kind of bias, that is in the data set.
How is this like weighted, I guess? Because I'm trying to, you got like this one, this is like 4 states in one year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like 3 states in one year. But then here you got 1.
That's right.
Out here you got 1. So how is it weighted to take that into account? Because then you look, if I looked at this, it's like, well, heck, the last year it dropped back down to 46, but that's only 1 state that reported that.
Yeah. Well, without getting too much into the weeds, it's essentially this is a regression, and the model is fitting a line to a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this. I think he took one of the meta-analytical approaches, since this is an analysis of studies and not individual data points within a study. So there are some things that are being accounted for in that, for the fact that they're different data points and there's problems with it. But it's a statistical approach that you're looking at, and that's what fit that line.
Okay.
Yeah, and the years that have more data points are going to more strongly influence the slope of that line. Yes.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of wondering, because that makes sense. You got 1 point here, you got 4 back here.
Right.
Yeah. And in some cases, Cameron, I don't think we did it in this particular one, but this is pretty common. The sample size, the higher the sample size that you have in a given point, the more confidence we'd have in that. So it would generally be weighted more.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Y'all know how much the average age of U.S. citizens aged similar over that time period? Because I did feel like people are getting older. I mean, the boomers are all getting older, so there's a lot of people aging anyway.
Yeah. Zach was looking into that. We're currently in the revision process in this paper at a journal, and that should go into that, because that was one thing that the reviewers brought up. But yeah, I think you're right that the general age is aging, although I'm not sure. I don't think it's as fast as what
this line. So that it may be something like that kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly.
I looked that up actually, and from
He's on ChatGPT if you didn't know.
1990, I use DeepSeek, so it's accurate.
Yeah, that's how you know it's good.
From 1990 to 2016, because that's kind of the time frame that you guys focused in on the study, it seemed like to me. And the reason for that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is because of lack of current available data. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I guess there's two things going on, Andy. One, that Fish and Wildlife Survey was done over that 5-year period, the 2011 to 16. Yeah. And then the figure you just looked at, that's all of the studies that have ever been published on turkey hunter data.
Okay.
So
yeah. So what
there are different time frames, I guess, depending on which one you're talking about.
Yeah, what I'd seen was from 1990 to 2016, the median age in the U.S. increased from 32.9 to 37.9. So we had an increase of about 5 years in the average age. And none of us on this that the viewers can see or the listeners can hear are going to disagree with the fact that the population is aging. Mm-hmm. And it's going to continue to do that. My parents are much older, so I'm going to say, God willing, it'll continue to do that. And, I'm not far behind them. So that means I'll get to live to be 120 and still killing turkeys, if that's accurate. So, but yeah, and I think that's good. It's something that's extremely important that's got to be looked at and considered in this study. And just to carry it out a little bit further from 2016, if we don't end that in 2016 and we carry it to 2022, there's one more year added on to the average age or median age. I'm sorry. So the median age in the U.S. was 38.9 in 2022 compared to 1990. It was 32.9. So that's really off the topic altogether. I was really kind of surprised to see it 32.9 in 1990. But
yeah, it's young.
That, like I said,
everybody's having kids, like tons of them.
Yeah,
my parents were having their fourth and then their fifth a few years later.
So Andy, I think one thing that's interesting to point out is that Marcus, from that analysis, you were finding that the average age was increasing at what rate per year? Was it 1 year?
I think it was 1 year in age for every 3 years that passed.
Okay, so 1 to 3.
Yeah.
So that some of that is probably explainable, which I think is your point, Andy, just because
Mhm.
of people are getting older.
Well, the
Right.
other thing that I was thinking
And-
about within the context of these data last week was I had a conversation with some guys that listened to it, and they were talking about all the examples that they know of guys getting into turkey hunting later in life.
Mhm.
And of course that would bias it older too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would
Well,
make-
no, you could also see where this might swing over a fairly short time period, which maybe, I don't know if this is what one point that you wanted to get into, Cameron, but something I've been thinking about a lot. We probably have higher hunter recruitment when we have better turkey populations.
Mhm.
yeah. That's true.
So, 10 years ago, when we were looking pretty bleak in a lot of areas in terms of the trajectory of the population, we might have had poor recruitment. Whereas in the past few years, where it's been up in a lot of places, I could see where people are taking kids hunting a lot more. So, you could see swings in this kind of data set, I guess, from those kinds of things. Another issue is, I don't know about you guys, but I tell Zach this all the time, and I'm his boss. I'm kind of tired of getting surveys. Like
Mhm.
I have some survey fatigue. Like it's so easy to send people surveys now through your email or whatever. Like people are just tired of taking it. So you may see shifts in the demographics just because of changes in the who is willing to take a survey.
Yeah, the age of survey respondents.
Yeah, maybe young people don't like to take surveys as much now.
And retired people have nothing else to do. Yes, I said that. Andy at IamTurkeyHunting.com. It's just because I'm jealous.
Well, so speaking on surveys, you make a good point there about young people. I could see another part that skews it is a lot of states are reducing bag limits and doing things like that. Tennessee, I can only kill 2 now. I'm more likely to probably take some kid who didn't kill one, help him out because I get to go more. I could see that skewing it too with a lot of states doing that. But in regards to the survey, I wanted to talk about the 2016 U.S. Fish and Wildlife Survey so I've done my citizen science. I'm going to share some things on here. But that study, I feel like not only y'all has been quoted over and over by a lot of people showing this massive decline in hunter participation. And I found it interesting. I'll pull this up. I'd like to discuss this with y'all.
Yeah.
That the survey size for a national survey, there we go. Let me share this.
Yeah, I think it was 3,000 or something, right?
Yeah. Let's see here. How do I? Okay, hold on. I gotta go change it over here, I guess. This one. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
So
I can't but I can, yes.
yeah, it's small. I don't know how to. I'm trying to figure out how to share it better, like where I can.
Let me see if I can. I got it. I think I've got it zoomed in now.
Okay. Man, this is pitiful. Maybe if I go here, is it moving when I'm doing this?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I went down to one of the pages towards the end that talks about how they did the survey. And it shows, so this is the sample size. So what they did is a pre-screening phase. So they screened out people, and then they did a detailed phase. And what I found was interesting is 1980, 85, 91, in these years, so like 1991, they screened 102,000 households. And then they ended up interviewing 23,000 people. The 2016 study, they dropped that from 102,000 to 8,000. And then they went through 5,640 interviews and only had 83% response rate. So they surveyed 3,950 people to get their data about millions of people in the entire United States. And then if we extrapolate the percentage of turkey hunters, we're talking 687 people were surveyed to estimate the 2 million turkey hunters. I mean, scientifically, is that a good enough sample size? I mean, that's pretty small, and judging by the reduction in the amount of people surveyed from 20-something thousand to 3,000, couldn't that have skewed that data significantly?
I think the short answer is yes. It would be much better to sample more of the population, but the other thing, I guess, Zach would be, is much more intimate with this since he was the one doing the digging on this. But I think
he was analyzing it. I guess he didn't do this.
Yeah, he didn't actually do the survey, but he's the one that was digging around in it to see what they did, and I think one of the things that he noted when we were discussing with him is that the margin for error on this was larger than we would like, and that is attributable to the sample size problem. So we have reasonable confidence that that they were statistically different, but the magnitude of that difference is questionable. So I think, they showed like a 50% decrease or 40%, something like that, based on their estimate.
It was like they estimated it went from 3 million turkey hunters to 2 million.
Yeah. So, 50, I mean, if that's true, that could be a problem, right? Like that's a pretty stark change, but the problem with that is those estimates might be plus a few million, plus or minus a few million. So they're still statistically different, but that 50% decline might more realistically be 5%.
Yeah, so, that's what I was kind of thinking. I mean, maybe trajectory went down a little bit, but did it go down a million?
And that said, it could also go the other way. But I think we probably all agree that it's very unlikely that the number of turkey hunters has gone down that much or more. So we're thinking the same way, I think, as you guys, that if anything, the error would probably err toward not as much change.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have 75% the sample. So like you said, that means your error rate improves significantly. And it looks like they only did a national survey and did not take into account any state figures for whatever reason in 2016 versus previous ones. And anyway, I just felt like that was interesting to see, because I was like, I mean, I feel like this should be in bold on the front of this thing of like, hey, we sampled 75% less people when we took no state entries.
Yeah, I gotta wonder, what's up with that? I mean, they must have had like a significant funding cut for this
something
survey that they do or something. Because I mean, you're going from, like you said, Cameron, well over 100,000 several surveys ago down to 8,000 now. So that's wild.
Well, and I'm just curious if the vast majority of that difference is not having the state data in there. Is it possible that the USFWS was surveying that small of a sample size of their own sample, their own survey, and then bringing in that significant size of state data to add on top of it? I don't know. You guys may be more familiar with all that than I am.
Yeah, I really don't know either. And also, I'll have a disclaimer. I'm not. I don't have any attachment to this data set, and I'm not arguing that it's correct or incorrect.
Sure.
No. I thought it was just an interesting topic to talk about.
Yeah.
It kind of blew my mind.
I think the thing for us, we were trying to find data, and we were trying to figure out what would explain the increase in age that we saw, which I think we have more confidence in that.
Yeah.
And is that just the population's aging, or is there something going on where older people are more willing to take surveys, or are we seeing a decline in the hunter participation? And this is one of the studies that we found when we were digging to try to figure out why did we observe, like, is there an explanation for why the population will be aging? And this one, whereas, that 50% magnitude, I think is probably not really that reasonable. I could see it being more reasonable on average across the US that there's less hunters. Maybe 1% less or 5% less or whatever that is, probably not 50%, but I don't think that's unreasonable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I took like a snip right here of the actual from the study. I mean, all this is straight from their website, showing 3,950 detailed sportsman interviews were completed. Then I multiplied that times the percent that said they were turkey hunters to get our 687 people figure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I was going to design a survey just in Alabama, I would probably want to interview at least a few hundred people just statewide.
That's kind of what I thought. It was interesting is most of the state surveys I've seen have a larger sample than that.
Yeah, and we have Zach is spearheading these, but we have a number of different surveys that are ongoing, and we're trying to get in the hundreds at the state level at a minimum.
Yeah. Another thing I found interesting from this, so they've done the newest one was 2022 survey. Now they did not break 2022 out by turkey hunters.
Yeah, that's why we didn't use it.
Yeah, this is for total hunters. But I did find it, it's worth noting. It's interesting. The total from 16 to 22, went up 2.9 million. So 25%.
The
total hunters.
Yeah, okay.
So a 25% increase over those 6 years. And it was interesting. The biggest increases were in age 16 and 17 went up 150%. Age 18 to 24 went up 70%. 35 to 44 went up 75%. And then age 65 and older went up 50%.
Mm-hmm.
The only two that saw a decline were these two down here. 45 to 64 went down. So basically the old people got older and are hunting, and then like kind of the Andes of the world, 45 to 64 went down, whereas your young folks were blowing and going the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who fits in that 45 to 64 age group, I will tell you that I'm not taking a survey unless you're paying me money to do it. And I'll promise the USFWS is not paying money to do it, nor is the Council to Advance Hunting and the Shooting Sports. So there's no survey being taken by me. I am the representative for that age group. So you can take that to the bank. We're not doing surveys. So that's why our numbers are down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the last thing I had on this page was there's this website you can click on. Anyway, you go to the count. I think this is new. They're just starting the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports, where they actually are keeping up with the demographics and stuff of license holders. And this is not nationwide. This is only the states who participate, which I think there's like 12 or 15. And they're showing new recruits up 15% since 2018. So that kind of helped mirror the
and that was hunting overall, right?
Yeah, hunting licenses sold.
Mm-hmm.
So up 25% since 16, up 15% from 18. That seems like those kind of mirror each other to me. Yeah. Non-resident up 24%. We all know everybody's traveling to turkey hunt and hunt overall more now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
Yeah, that is.
Well, that was one of the things that I've been wondering about this, and I may have even said it when we went through this on our podcast, was that, I wonder if our perception of some of these increases in turkey hunting pressure and turkey hunter numbers are driven by non-resident pressure, where we have people from out of state coming to our woods because, maybe we open a week or two earlier than them.
Well, it's a good point, Will. Let's go over. So,
you got that one addressed too, huh?
We've got over here what I did, and this is really a big part of the discussion I want to have. So I found 29 states that actually report either on a statewide level. The best data, in my opinion, is somewhere like Minnesota, where they sell turkey permits.
Yeah, well, that's the other problem with this.
Very true.
Is that most states?
A lot of states don't do it, but Minnesota if everyone did that, it'd be easy to see.
Yeah.
But Minnesota would be a good example of a state. They sell turkey permits. I have their chart down here. So they keep up with how many permits they issued.
Wow.
In the harvest.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Minnesota since 1978. I'm guessing that's when they started turkey hunting to present. And I mean, it's a rocket ride, and it's a one bird state. So we know their permits issued kind of equals hunters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one, they do that. Montana does it. Wyoming, Idaho, a lot of states have a turkey permit, makes it easy to track. The other ones in here, let's see, Alabama, Mississippi, they base theirs off of hunter surveys, which we've discussed at length. And these were the only states I could find that had a 10-year record from 2014 to 2024. And so I kind of plotted them all on here. Basically, Georgia and Pennsylvania, which I know y'all talked to the Georgia coordinator, Georgia's tanking. They have the worst, turkey hunter numbers of anybody. They've dropped 14,000 or 26% in 10 years. Pennsylvania's second worst. They've gone from 220,000 turkey hunters to 170,000. So they're down 22%. So there are some states where we're seeing pretty massive declines, like Georgia and Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other side, most states, I mean, look at Montana down here, went from 27,000 to 46,000 essentially.
Yeah.
And that's a total of 18,000 more people. And then I broke it. Theirs actually breaks it down resident, non-resident, and residents were up 56%.
That blows my mind. I would have thought in Montana that'd be driven by non-residents.
Yeah, well, it is somewhat. Residents went from 26,000 to 41,496. And Wyoming is the other one that broke it down by residency, and their residents were up 22%. So, but their overall were up 54%. So you can see a big part of that's explained by non-residents, but the residents are participating a lot more too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth noting at this point that you guys Marcus, you brought up on your podcast something that I thought was very important, and I am seeing just my personal observation that is true, and that is that there are states where turkey hunting is becoming more popular, the non-traditional turkey hunting states, such as out west. Like I would imagine Montana has never really been a traditional turkey hunting state where, it's an opportunity state. I'm out, I've got a fall turkey tag, I'm hunting elk or deer, and a turkey comes by, bam, we're eating turkey tonight. But I see now where there are more and more locals who are hunting turkeys in those states. For example, I can go knock on doors in those states, and 15 years ago, I would hardly ever get a no. And now the no's I get are, well, my neighbor 3 farms up, he turkey hunts my place. He brings his kids down and they turkey hunt my place. So I think that's worth bringing into the discussion, but we don't have any way of knowing how that skews numbers one way or the other. But I believe, again, personal experience, not science, that is affecting some numbers in some states.
Yeah, Andy, another point to add on to that I've been thinking through while y'all were talking, that we probably have a lower proportion of the turkey hunting community have private land to go to. And in that case, like you just said, you used to knock on doors and never get a no. Well, a lot of the landowners have realized that they can monetize that opportunity.
That's true.
Or they're leasing it or have some sort of way to monetize it. And, we're we have less people with private land, more people traveling, and potentially less private land for them to travel to in that scenario. So all of that is just putting more pressure on public land, which, would kind of go back to Will's point earlier, where some of this, I guess it's possible that we could have the same number of turkey hunters and still have this really big increase in how it's affecting people because of, the other issues that are causing the pressure to increase, even though that might not scale exactly with how many hunters there are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also had, so there's that notable, pretty large increases. Minnesota was the one I said actually does licenses. They're up 23%, Alabama up 24.5%, Illinois up 30%, South Dakota 37%, Mississippi's up 42.7%.
Yeah, that's crazy.
A lot of that coming since 2019. They were at 47,000, and now they're, pretty consistently in the 68 to 71 range. Wyoming, Idaho up 63%, and Montana up 66%. So,
Cameron, for the listeners of the show, if they're not watching this on YouTube or not going to watch this on YouTube, so there's roughly 16 states, and how many of them over this time period have shown a decrease in?
There's 17 on this page, and 4 have shown a decrease: Georgia,
Okay.
Pennsylvania, Louisiana, and Arizona.
And then the overall increase, which mathematically may not be a good number, but what is the average?
That may be on my next page. Well, okay, before we do that, I was going to go to the next page. These are states where I couldn't get clear data of 2014 to 2024. So they reported kind of differently. So like Michigan, I could get 2016. I could not get 2 years back. So Michigan, since 2016, has gone up 30%, 29.21, 21,000 more tags. Washington, since 2017, is up 14.5%. Virginia, the last report they gave was 2022. At that point, they were up around 20% since 2014. My home state in Tennessee, I was kind of shocked by these numbers because 2020 is when we killed like 40-something thousand birds checked in during COVID. But we're 40% higher than that on our hunter participation. And that's based on surveys.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana up 25%. And then these were two I wanted to kind of discuss, where with Kansas and Nebraska, I mean, they're wanting to decrease pressure and it's working. So
yeah,
Kansas 2013 sold 44,800 permits. And, as a lot of us are aware now, Kansas is now a draw for non-residents. You have to draw to go out Kansas. And they cut their bag limit, I believe, from, I think at one point it was 3, then it was 2, and now it's 1. So by cutting that, their permit sales are now 21,000. I mean, I kept it in here, but like that's really skewed because that could be people buying 2 or 3 tags. This is people can only buy 1. So they've done that. And then Nebraska's done the same thing. In 2022, they implemented permit restrictions on non-residents. You can only buy, there's only 10,000 available to non-residents. But they've decreased theirs by 24% as well. Then after that, you got Wisconsin up 7.8, New Mexico 21, and Rhode Island's up 30%. There wasn't real good representation from the Northeast. Those states just don't really keep up with their hunter numbers yet. But overall, I was able to find statistics on 29 states, and 79% of that, or 23 states, are increasing in turkey permit sales, while 6 are decreasing. And of those 6, Kansas, Nebraska, those are kind of on purpose. Or not kind. Those are on purpose. They're trying to decrease sales.
So it looks more recently, based on this, I'd say, and I think this is your point, it looks like in most places we're seeing an increase in turkey hunting. Based on what
Past
you're
10
showing.
years.
And yeah, and Zach is actually doing a very similar thing to what you're doing right now, because we're really interested in this and trying to get answers. I don't really care what the answer is. I just want to be able to tell people. But one thing that I'll note here, and I don't know if you have thought about it or if you're dealing with it, because I don't know the individual regulations very well in a lot of these states. But one problem that we had, and we definitely have it in Florida, is they have a turkey permit, but now that turkey permit can be purchased as part of a combo license.
Yeah.
And based on the survey work, a lot of people are getting a turkey permit because they get a combo license. And here, a lot of times that combo license is because they're hunting and fishing or something like that. So they're getting a turkey permit, but they actually don't turkey hunt. So that's one thing that's, I know people are super frustrated out there. And it's like, how could we not know how many hunters there are? Well, if you had 500,000 people buy a fishing license and a combo that get a turkey permit too, some of those are turkey hunters, but a portion of them aren't. And it's really hard to know without having some kind of survey or something.
Yeah,
right?
That's why Tennessee does a survey,
Yeah, and it's really useful when they're paired together because they complement one another. So, like, if you do a subset of that 500,000 that I gave in that hypothetical, you can figure out what proportion of them actually are using the permit they got, or are they just getting it because it's part of a combo that has something else they like in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was something that we had talked about with Dr. Roger Shields last week. We had him on to talk about how harvest statistics are calculated. And, you have that issue, Marcus, but you also have an issue like Alabama, and I believe Tennessee is the same way. I know there are a lot of states that are this way. If you're hunting private ground, you're hunting your own land, I should say. You don't have to have a license.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
If you're 65 or older, you don't have to have a license. So that's one of the reasons why these surveys are important. Obviously, we know that, but it further complicates things for guys like you and Will and Dr. Shields to be able to give good, sound science to the people who are making our regulations for us. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Isn't that frustrating though, that it seems like it ought to be easy to know how many people are turkey hunting.
We're in the technology age.
Yeah.
I can my car can drive me from my house to the Gulf of America in 5.5 hours, wherever I tell it to go. I don't have to touch the steering wheel. But we don't know how many turkey hunters we have who are hunting. Come on, this is
it's frustrating enough to study wildlife. We always say that you can't talk to the animals or you can't ask them questions, but we can ask people questions, and we still don't have good answers.
Well, and like people are wanting to know how many turkeys are there, and we're in the same boat there. But you would think we would know better on the human side of things. But that's one thing that has opened my eyes since working with Zach, because he's digging in all this stuff, and we're trying to get answers for people, and it's so frustrating trying to deal with all these problems. And I think one thing that I have taken from that experience, and it seems to be even reflected in what you're showing, Cameron, is that it really depends. There's a lot of nuance.
Yeah.
There's some states that I think is pretty clear that there might be a sharp decline, and other states where it's a sharp increase in turkey hunters. And, that's important to understand what's driving that, and what the reason, I told you Zach was going through a lot of these same things. One thing that we got really interested in is, why is there nuance? Why are they increasing in one state and in the neighboring state they might be declining? Is that driven by regulation? Is it driven by, a change in the way they're bundling permits? Or, what, like, we're trying to understand what is going on. We have data related to reproduction, of the turkey population, overall abundance of turkey estimates, all sorts of things, trying to figure out why is this such a mess.
And that's got to be another source of frustration. And then you look at these surveys, you guys formulate opinions, you formulate your recommendations based on trends, and you have a survey that has 100,000 respondents, 100,000 respondents, 110,000 respondents, 90,000 respondents, and 7,000 respondents. So that's got to be just, if I were in your business, I'd say that's why I don't have any hair on my head, but I'm not. So
that's why mine's gray.
Yeah,
I'm holding it okay, but it's getting gray.
And I think all of this really, for Cameron, for me, is to say what we're seeing is different than. First of all, I think a lot of our numbers showed that a little different opinion than what the study that you guys did, you and Steele did, and these numbers can be used to affect states' opinions, the way that they direct Pittman Robertson dollars to recruit new hunters, and what forms of hunting they're trying to recruit new hunters to. And then here we are, you guys included by all means, trying to teach the public and trying to grow a population of turkeys that has been declining for a lot of years. And, we look at it, Cameron and I do, and I know y'all hunt as well, so I'm not trying to exclude you from this at all, but we look at it and we say, hey, we're having opportunities taken away from us because there are more hunters and because there are fewer turkeys to hunt. And so
less land to hunt them on.
Yeah. So what we see or what we hear and read into a study like that you did was, hey, the hunters are aging out. We've got fewer hunters, or maybe we've got the same number of hunters, but they're older, which means in 10 years, 20 years, we're going to have fewer hunters because we're not bringing the new ones in to replace them. And I don't know, we see and experience a different side of that. Being, I don't run into, when I'm hunting public ground anywhere, I don't run into 60, 70, 80-year-old guys out hunting. Probably because it's running up and down mountains or running up and down hills is a young man's game. So I'm running a bunch of young guys out there, and the older guys are typically financially better off than younger people are. Maybe have their own land, maybe have a hunting club that they're in, and they're hunting those areas and not public ground. And so, still, I can look at my own world that I live in, my hunting club. There's one older gentleman that hunts. I would guess him to be in his late 60s. That turkey hunts. The rest of the guys are younger than me by 15 to 20 years, which would make them in their early 30s to 40 years old. So I don't know. I see, and again, I'm going to go out one other example here, and I know you got to ditch us here in a minute, but looking at attendance at the NWTF convention, I see a lot of mullets and rope hats. I don't see very many gray bald-headed dudes with big bellies like me walking around there at the convention. So I don't know. I just, again, going back to kind of sum all that up, it's, to us, I think it's important because the data that you guys comprise and put into these studies and these surveys will or can or will be used to affect the decision makers, our legislators, our conservation advisory boards going forward in how they do things, whether it's recruiting new hunters or affecting our bag limits and opportunities to hunt. So
Andy, I think you're making really important points, and I'll reiterate that what Zach did was go to see what has been published, and that showed us several things that we really need to look into, and now we have follow-up studies trying to get better answers, because I think you're right that what we have is not adequate for us to make good decisions based on.
Yeah.
So that's one point. Another thing I wanted to spend a minute, if you guys don't mind.
Please.
I think, we're on this, I kind of view it as a double-edged sword, or so to speak, where we have a problem where we have more pressure on public land, and people are perceiving that, and a lot of our people, people that get angry about this topic, the people that have gotten angry at us since we did that episode, they're saying there's no way there's less turkey hunters. I can't even find a place to park, which that also affects me. I get it. I'm a hunter and I hunt on public land a lot, and I feel that same sort of thing. But then, the other side of that coin, and the reason that I think is really important for us to be talking about these nuances and also trying to get better data and better answers is, Will and I were just out on an example of this recently together, but I go on a lot of properties where people really care about turkeys. And those are some of the best managed landscapes, and they were putting the most effort into it to make sure that those are pristine landscapes for turkeys and a lot of other species. And if we're not recruiting people that care about that land, I also am dealing with the situation here in Florida, and it certainly applies elsewhere, that landowners are getting older, and when they hand that land down, if their family don't care about that resource, then that gets sold. And that all, in Florida, ultimately that often means that it gets developed.
Right.
And I think we're kind of balancing this issue here where we have a finite resource. We want to keep the opportunity high and the quality of that hunt high, but we also need to maintain enough interest and enough hunter recruitment so that we aren't seeing a lack of interest in that, owning land and that investment that's going into land management, because the majority of the South, at least, is private owned. And if people don't care about turkeys on that land, I don't think we're going to have a very good outcome from that, because the alternative land uses are often not turkey friendly.
Yeah.
So I think, it's important for us to unpack all of those nuances, and, that's something Will and I think a lot about. I know because he and I talk about it all the time, but, some of these landowners that I work with, the amount of resources and time they're putting into turkey management because they love turkey hunting, I can't imagine somebody doing without that love for it.
Right. Yeah. I get that.
That's kind of the big one thing I wanted to go on is, like, why does this matter? And y'all both just went through that, because some people may just be like, well, what does it matter? Who cares if there's more or less, whatever? And Marcus, you just made a great case for why it matters, especially on a private land front, for people to care about turkeys, and for listen to Turkey Science, learn how to do habitat work, follow Craig Harper and, you guys and all these people, which I think we're in an age where that's more accessible and been a lot better than it used to be. I mean, I've learned a lot more in the past 5 years than I know I would have if we didn't have these type of tools ahead of us. But to Andy's point, I put this in the slides as well, that in 2019, they amended the Pittman-Robertson Act to include R3 as, valid for funding from Pittman Robertson.
Mm-hmm.
And so why this matters, in my opinion, on the flip side of that is if Andy and I and y'all and all the podcasts and all the influencers and all the hunters say, turkey hunters are on decline. If we don't step up now and get more hunters, it's going to be bad news. Then our wildlife agencies and stuff are going to listen to that, and they're going to direct Pittman Robertson funds, which is almost $1 billion, to recruitment. All these things includes range construction, these learn to hunt classes and all this stuff for turkey hunters, rather than putting those millions of dollars into habitat, land acquisitions, things like that. And so it's kind of a big deal, because if we get that wrong, and it may be, from what I saw through what I just did, it's kind of a state by state deal. Pennsylvania, they may need to be putting some money in.
They need some help.
People.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's another important point that you were making, Cameron, that, like if we're doing these R3 activities and we're bringing on more people that are going to be more pressure on public land and diverting money at the same time away from acquiring more public land or managing it better. That's intensifying this issue.
A double net negative.
Yeah, as a scientist and a hunter, I can understand where people are coming from multiple sides of this.
Yeah.
It's really important. And that's why, I'm not a human dimensions guy. This isn't what I do. And I don't really like the kind of work, to be honest with you. I didn't get into this business to study people. But I also recognize, man, this is pretty critical for a lot of things I care about, and we need better data, and that's why I recruited Zach, because that's, he's really skilled in this area, and we've been beating the bushes trying to figure out this kind of stuff, and we have studies. Hopefully, they'll be a little less inflammatory than that last one, but. That was really a survey of studies to see what's available and what we would gain from that, and trying to understand why we see trends. And now we have things where we're actually actively trying to drill down in some of those trends and figure out what is going on. And one of them I'm excited about that we didn't even discuss is focused on what is driving people to make these decisions. Like what is driving people to acquire land, and how much is hunting playing a role in what they're actively managing it, and if they're engaged in conservation easements, and all these kinds of things are really important for the future of turkeys, because ultimately we're going to have to maintain high quality habitat that's connected across the landscape, and adequate populations of turkeys to support the hunting pressure on them. So, this is a critical nexus, and I can't understate that, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting. Like we were talking about Pennsylvania, probably could use some R3, whatever, for turkeys. But like for me, what thorn in my side, at least, has been like Tennessee paying YouTube influencers to come promote turkey hunting here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are we using funds for that? We're okay. We got a 40% increase in 5 years. We don't need more.
Did you guys ask Roger that?
No, I didn't. But Roger stated that it was increasing massively in our show. But I'm just like, golly, they did that at the same time. Like the two biggest WMAs near my house are both quotas now because too many people are hunting them. Leases are $20 an acre.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need more people.
Maybe that 40% increase is because some influencers came.
That's what I'm saying. And they paid them to do it.
They paid them money to do it.
Yeah, $10,000 to come hunt Tennessee.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's stuff like that going on. And I could definitely see, like, if I went and grabbed my 10 hat real quick, but I can see where opening the PR funds up to R3 could send money to some interesting pockets. Just saying. because that's a pretty broad spectrum of where funds can go now, rather than habitat stuff. Just saying. But overall, it's interesting. I'll be interested in y'all's follow-up studies. It sounds like you're going to do some for trying to get more recent history based on my citizen science here. I imagine your recent history is going to show things are booming in the turkey world in the past 5 to 10 years, most everywhere except for, a few regional areas and states where it's purposefully been made harder to go turkey hunting, Nebraska and Kansas.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting when y'all get that going.
Yeah. Well, we will. You can be assured we will be sharing it as soon as we have something we're confident to share.
Absolutely.
I have one more question for Marcus before we cut him loose. Are you making your in-laws stand outside in the heat and not letting them in your vehicle?
No, I think they're a little bit late landing. So
okay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so that part didn't make it on the show, but Marcus has been on his way to the airport to pick up his in-laws, and so I was just wondering. We had a hard stop about 10 minutes ago. We're running 10 minutes past that stop, so I just kind of in my mind envisioned his in-laws over there pulling on the door handles, sweating to death, trying to get into the vehicle.
Yeah, they're actually in the back seat. I'm glad you guys didn't notice.
Oh goodness! Hey, we appreciate you guys. This has been interesting. I love the fact that, and really, everyone that we've run across in the turkey hunting world, all the scientists, biologists, everyone that we've talked to and dealt with, you all approach every topic, it seems like, with an open mind, and that's what you're supposed to do. I mean, you're scientists, so you should be approaching everything in that manner. And so I love that. I think it's great. I think it makes for fantastic conversation. And Cameron and I are always here. If we can help you guys in any way, we're always here. You just have to reach out and say, hey, will you help us do X? And we're all over it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank y'all.
So, yeah. Appreciate you guys having us. It's been fun talking about this, and, I think it's important to have this kind of dialogue because, like you guys said, there's lots of different data sets and they can be cut different ways and interpreted different ways. So it's fun to explore that.
Yeah. Well, if Zach needs a citizen scientist to look up stuff for him, I'm here on my lunch break. So.
Yeah, I showed him already some of the work that you had done, and he was enjoying looking through it.
I think the important thing is, as long as we're having conversations about it, we'll get further and further towards the truth.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. Like, I just want to know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the crazy thing. We haven't yelled or screamed at each other one time. I'm really kind of disappointed in that, What is this? Are we all adults here? I don't understand.
I'm gonna call the US. Crazy. I'm calling the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service next. I might yell at them and be like, "You did this on 600 people? Are you kidding me? At least give me a few thousand for 2026 when you do it again." My gosh.
Yeah.
Well,
it's definitely been really frustrating, not just with Fish and Wildlife. I'm just saying, just in general, looking through what we had on the hunter engagement and recruitment side. It's like, man, why can't we count hunters better?
I know. I hope that's a push that states in the future, and it seems like more noticing it. Mississippi's doing a turkey stamp now. I'm hoping a lot of states. Put a free turkey stamp. You just have to click a button and get a turkey stamp to go turkey hunting.
Like a HIP permit.
Make it, just like exactly, Will.
Fill out a little survey like HIP. Did you kill a turkey last year? Did you kill more than 2? Okay.
Did you hunt?
Yeah.
Did you hunt? Yeah. Anything like that, and we have an accurate. Because this information is very important. Just like we talked about Pittman Robertson dollars.
Absolutely.
we need this information. Y'all need it more than we do, but we like to watch it. But
and debate it.
yeah, why can't we just do that? It blows my mind. That's not an easily like across the board. Everyone's like, this is a great idea. Let's just do it. I don't know. It blows my mind how hard it is to get things like that implemented. So hopefully in the future, because of turkey science and you guys and all these other biologists that are getting bigger with turkeys, hopefully states will start realizing, hey, we need to give them good data. And 600 people surveyed in the entire United States is not the best data set to go off of. Maybe we should actually turkey stamp.
So another thing, I'll just say one thing real quick. Hopefully everybody that's still listening, you realize how important it is to take surveys. So if somebody sends you a survey about turkeys, then please take that.
Yeah, I've taken several, and I even had some sent to me this year from states I didn't hunt. I guess because I bought a license in the past 5 years, and I took it and told them I didn't hunt this year. Just let them know. But I always open and take those. So that's a great point.
Well, those data points are important too. Yeah,
and be honest on them. That's the other part of it.
Yeah.
If you only hunted Alabama and you killed 8 turkeys and the limit's 4, like half the population of Alabama does, then put 8 on the survey. And just don't put your return address and don't sign it. Just send it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy's just going to casually throw that out there. That accusation.
That was a little passive aggressive.
To add to that, these things are looked at in aggregate. So, they're not going to connect something like that to you necessarily anyway.
Game wardens just bust through the door immediately. Looks like you marked 8 on your survey, sir. You got a light year this year now.
Well, I can personally tell y'all that I've gotten state agency data on game harvest before, deer and turkeys, where people like incriminated themselves just like that. It's like, I killed a turkey on March 2nd. Well, that's interesting. That's 23 days before the season opened that year. But to my knowledge, I don't think they make cases based off of that. So.
Wow. I recall seeing something in one of Alabama's harvest surveys. This has been 7-8 years ago, and it was right after Alabama had cut the bag limit from 5 turkeys to 4, and there was actually a group that had killed 6 turkeys, 5 turkeys, 4 turkeys, and so they showed the number of hunters who had killed turkeys, 6 turkeys, 5 turkeys, 4 turkeys. I'm like, okay. All right, we're just going to leave it at this.
It makes you wonder, did they just intentionally answer that they broke the law, or did they just fat finger that on the survey response? It's hard to know.
Yeah. Tennessee, you can look up the game harvest and, per day on turkeys, and there'll be people reporting turkeys in March every year.
Yeah.
And like I asked my game warden buddy about it, he's like, we have one guy from Georgia up here. He's on public land, smoked 2 in March.
On public land.
And checked them in. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. All right. Well, Marcus has now just left his in-law standing outside the truck. He's just driven off, so we probably need to let him go.
He said he'll just go to the brewery and not let them drop him off there.
I need a beer after this discussion, guys. Well, right, guys, I do need to run, but I appreciate it, guys. It was really fun talking to you.
All right,
always
see
good
y'all.
to talk to you guys. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.